and I rise to oppose the motion to invoke cloture on TPA, so-called fast-track legislation. I am still incredulous as I've watched this trade non-debate, if you will, at the speed at which time after time the majority leader has tried to shut down debate. It's happened again and again, and that's compounded, Mr. President, by the secretness of this whole process. I can't count the number of times in my state of Ohio and in meetings in Washington with people from all over the country. I can't count the number of times that people have said, we have little or no access to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The TPA has not had, TPA in the past, fast track, has actually been sort of a rule book, if you will, for how we should negotiate trade agreements, and at the same time has been directions on how you negotiate these trade agreements and a rule book on how it's presented on the Senate floor. Yet none of the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations by Ambassador Froman had been informed at all by a TPA, because we haven't had a TPA yet. We haven't even written that instruction booklet. It hasn't passed. At the same time, we've gotten the worst of both worlds, because we're voting on TPA and we really haven't been able to see what's in TPP. I know that supporters of TPP will say, well, we're going to have 60 days now, but members are casting their votes now when they have maximum leverage, casting their votes now where 60 votes are required and have maximum leverage. And to put no fine a point on it, just giving up the leverage that they have as we are still kept in the dark on what's happening with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Let me give one example before I get to where I think we're making a mistake by moving so quickly today. In essence, fast-tracking fast track. One example, we have repeatedly, my office has repeatedly, and I personally have repeatedly spoken to the President of the United States, the ambassador, the United States Trade Rep Ambassador, Mr. Froman, repeatedly asked them to fix some of the language in tobacco, because one of the things that apparently, if we really could know for sure, that the Trans-Pacific Partnership does is give even more power to American tobacco companies, to have influence over laws that particularly small countries that don't have the wherewithal and can't afford the huge legal bills that a large tobacco company can afford to write public health laws. So if a small country wants to write a law to protect their children from marketing of tobacco products, which is what we've done in this country, a U.S. tobacco company or a British tobacco company can, well, let's keep it here. A U.S. tobacco company can threaten a lawsuit against those countries, and those countries are probably going to back off because they can't afford to go to court with a big American tobacco company. Even something is clearly violative of the public interest and of public health as what as the damage big tobacco inflicts on children, even that is not, to our knowledge, been addressed. But again, so much of this is secretive, we don't even know that. And that's why there's anger in this country, and why there is that so many people in this country tell me, so many in my state, why are you moving so fast? Why is this coming up right now? Why don't we know more about this whole process? Yet, again, the majority leader is shutting down debate. He will be joined, I assume, by a small number, a distinct small number of minority Democrats, and just getting up over the 60 vote margin so they can shut down debate, so they can move the Trans-Pacific, so they can move the TPA, the fast track, forward so they can get the Trans-Pacific Partnership down the road. But, Mr. President, no matter which side of the TPP debate, no matter which side of the Trade Promotion Authority, TPA, fast track, no matter which side you're on, it's clear that our trade policy creates winners and losers. I mean, it's clear. Even the most vigorous cheerleaders for free trade, the Wall Street Journal editorial board, for instance, even the strongest free traders, even the people that just reflexively support these free trade agreements, even they acknowledge there are winners and losers. They will argue that these trade agreements create more jobs than they lose. I don't agree with that. They argue that. Put that aside. But they also acknowledge that people lose jobs because of decisions we make. So, Mr. President, we are about to pass fast track here. We're about to pass Trade Promotion Authority, leading to probably the Trans-Pacific Partnership having a reasonable chance of passage. We are about to do that. We are making that decision here. Members of Congress, people that are well paid with government-financed retirements and health care. We are about to make those decisions, and we're knowingly making that decision, acknowledging that some people will lose their jobs because of a decision we make, but we're not going to take care of those workers. We're going to pass today, we're going to pass the TPA, the Trade Promotion Authority / fast track. We're going to pass that and just ignore those workers. How shameful is that we know the decisions we are making in this body, we are making the decisions. The President of the United States makes this decision. The House of Representatives has made this decision. The Senate's about to make this decision. We're making this decision knowing people will lose their jobs because of our actions, yet we're unwilling to pass to provide for those workers that lose their jobs. Let me give a little history. In a special message to Congress, in January of 1962, President Kennedy said, when considerations of national policy make it desirable to avoid higher tariffs, those injured by that competition should not be required to bear the full brunt of the impact. Rather, the burden of economic adjustment should be borne in part by the federal government. That's President Kennedy at the beginning, at the creation of the Trade Adjustment Assistance, the support for workers who lose their jobs because of, again, I repeat, because of decisions we make in this body, in the House of Representatives, in the White House. We make decisions on trade. We know people will lose their jobs. We should help them. It should be our moral responsibility to help them. Senator Vance Hartke of Indiana said, no small group of firms and workers should be made to bear the full burden of the cost of a program whose great benefits enrich the nation as a whole. This is as true today as it was 53 years ago. It's not a Democratic idea. It's not a Republican idea. Everyone from the Cato Institute, a libertarian-oriented think tank in Washington, a bunch of well-paid scholars make pronouncements from on high about various kinds of public policy issues, to the Wall Street Journal, a similar body, but one with greater ability to disseminate information. Even those two venerable institutions admit that trade agreements do not create winners everywhere. A Cato Institute trade briefing says, all those job losses are a painful but necessary part of the larger process of innovation and productivity increases. I'm always a bit amused when people who, again, well-educated, good pay, dress like this, good benefits, good retirement, good health care, they make pronunciations saying, well, job losses are painful. Well, not to us, of course. The same as editorial writers that make these decisions, these pronouncements on trade. They're not losing their job. People in my state are losing their jobs with these trade agreements. So we're going to inflict this pain. We here, as the Cato Institute says, as the Wall Street Journal says, we're going to, by decisions we make, we're going to inflict pain on these workers. People are going to lose jobs in my town of Mansfield, Ohio. People are going to lose jobs where I grew up. People are going to lose jobs in Cleveland, where I live now. People are going to lose jobs in Zanesville, in Newark, because of decisions we make today on fast track, because of decisions we'll make next year on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. People are going to lose their jobs, but we're going to vote today to cut off debate, and we're just going to forget, at least temporarily, about helping those workers that lose jobs because of decisions we make. How immoral is that? How shameful is that? What a betrayal of those workers. What a betrayal we are inflicting on those workers if we make this decision today. Former Wall Street Journal editor, economics editor David Wessel writes, even free trade's most fervent admirers concede trade creates winners and losers. I mean, I'll debate till the cows come home the net benefits of these trade agreements. I think they're net job loss. But even if you concede that, even if you believe that these trade agreements are net job gainers, I don't think there's a lot of evidence for that, but even if you believe that, we know that people lose their jobs because of decisions we make. That's why Republicans in the past have supported trade adjustment assistance in principle and in policy going back decades. 15 years ago, President George W. Bush said, I recognize some American workers may face adjustment challenges. That means they get thrown out of work. It's a nice way that a president might talk about people that he has left behind, but put that aside. I recognize that some American workers may face adjustment challenges as a result of trade. But at least to President Bush's credit, I wish his words would be followed today on this floor by the majority leader, by Republican leader McConnell, as he cuts off debate and leaves behind trade adjustment assistance. President Bush said, I support helping these workers by reauthorizing and improving trade adjustment assistance, programs that will give workers impacted by trade new skills, helping them find new jobs quickly, providing them with financial assistance. And I can give lots of stories of people I know in Youngstown, and people I know in Lima, and people in Dayton, and people in Hamilton, and people in Portsmouth who've lost their jobs because of trade, but at least they've gotten a helping hand from a government that used to have their backs and believe in them, at least until today, from a government that actually will extend that hand and help them retrain. Maybe they can become a nurse. Maybe they can work in information technology. Maybe they can become a radiology technologist at the local hospital. Earlier this year, my colleague John Cornyn, a Republican from Texas, the senior senator and assistant Republican leader, told reporters, there's no doubt that the benefits of more trade do not fall uniformly. There are some segments of the economy that don't prosper as well. We know that. We've seen that acknowledgement across the board. Yet, today, Leader McConnell is going to cut off debate, even though decisions we've made have cost people their jobs. That's why we have a moral obligation. It's not a new idea. It's not a partisan idea. It's universally accepted. Trade deals don't benefit everybody. That's why this moral obligation to include trade adjustment assistance in any package with TPA is so important. We can't send a framework for a new trade deal to the president's desk without assistance for the workers who will be left behind. But that's not what we're doing today. Today it's full speed ahead, cut off debate, move ahead on fast track, move ahead on trade promotion authority. I assume a number of my Democratic colleagues are going along with it. I hope that the wrath of people in this country, if the House and Senate refuse to do what some of their leaders say they will, that they will pass trade adjustment assistance, that they will take care of those workers. If they don't live up to that promise, and many times in the past they haven't lived up to similar promises, a lot of my colleagues are going to go home and they're going to face people who say, wait, you made a decision. I got thrown out of a job because of a decision you made, because of a decision you made as a House member, because of a decision you made as a senator, because of a decision you made, Mr. President. I was thrown out of work and you passed on June 23rd or whatever today is, you passed fast track without taking care of me, even though it was your decision that I lose my job. I mean, what kind of government, what kind of principles do we live under here? In March, conservative columnist Charles Krauthammer wrote in National Review Online, to be sure, any trade deal, while a net plus overall, produces winners and losers. But the TPP will be accompanied by so-called trade adjustment assistance, training, and subsidies to help those negatively affected. Again, Krauthammer, as he is about 95% of the time, is wrong. He's wrong that it's going to be accompanied by trade adjustment assistance. The assumption all along, even among TPP proponents, has been that TPA would be passed in tandem with aid for workers. But you know, even though that's what we did first here, the Republicans in the House of Representatives are unwilling to vote for them together. They're just not going to vote. So Speaker Boehner, for some reason, the acquiescence of the President of the United States, pulled them apart and had separate votes. Think about the message we'll send. We put another huge trade deal. Parenthetically, once majority leader, Republican leader Trent Lott said, you can't pass a trade agreement in an even-numbered year. You know why he said that? He said that because people don't like trade deals in this country. People know that NAFTA sold them out. They know that CAFTA sold them out. They know that PNTR with China sold them out. They know that Korea sold them out. We've heard these promises over and over. NAFTA, we were promised 200,000 jobs in 2 years. Thank you, President Bush the first. Thank you, President Clinton, for that. We lost 680,000 net jobs. The Central American Free Trade Agreement. Thank you, President Bush the second, for that. Promises were made, big promises about job increases, big promises about wages going up. Didn't happen. Wages stayed flat. Jobs were lost. Thank you, President Bush II, for that. Korea, South Korea Free Trade Agreement, negotiated in part by President Bush, pushed through the Senate by President Obama. Thank you, Mr. President, of both parties for that. They told us 70,000 jobs would be created out of the South Korean trade agreement. Nope, we've lost 75,000 jobs. Using the same formula, we've seen this over and over. We know what happens. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that between 2009 and 2012, 2/3 of displaced workers, manufacturing workers who did find new jobs, ended up taking lower paid jobs. Most of those workers saw wage losses of more than 20%. You can debate whether the gains others experienced make these losses worth it. I don't think they do. I think if you've traveled darn near anywhere, if members of Congress would spend a little more time with people that can't contribute to them, with people that don't belong to the local Rotary Club, with people that might just work hard, play by the rules, not make a lot of money, barely make it, sometimes have their house foreclosed on, sometimes lose their job. If we'd spend a little more time with people like that, I think we'd see how these trade agreements are working. There's a debate to be had. I will cede that it's debatable whether these trade agreements, whether the evidence is that they create jobs or lose jobs. I think it's pretty clear they lose jobs, but there is no debate. There is no debate on what actually happens here, that because of decisions, I'll repeat before this vote coming up in about 60 seconds, because of decisions we make, again, because of decisions we make in this body, the president makes, senators make, congressmen and women make, because of decisions we make in this body, people in our states, whether it's Arkansas or Arizona or Oregon or Utah or my state of Ohio, people lose jobs because of decisions we make. There is no question people lose jobs because of decisions we make. So our answer, anything short of providing for those workers who lose their jobs today, not doing this on a promise, we are basically trusting the majority leader, who doesn't really like, I understand, doesn't much like the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program. We are relying on the word of Speaker Boehner, who doesn't particularly like trade adjustment assistance. We know that most of the members of his party in the House of Representatives don't particularly like trade adjustment assistance. So we are going to rely on their promise. We are voting today on the fly. We are saying to workers in this country, yeah, we've made decisions that may have cost your jobs. We're going to try to help you when you lose that job, but we're still going to go ahead today and do that. That's why I ask my colleagues to vote no on this motion today, to invoke cloture on Trade Promotion Authority.